All right. I hope anybody that is out there can hear me. I put this event out live, kind of really spur of the moment, spontaneous. And I can see now. Let me just check if I can get sound on my computer. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few topics that are not as important to me, but I see that they're getting a lot of attention. And I think I'll start off with these new announcements of uh, celebrity candidates for Senate next year. And the ones I'm hearing the most about are Kid Rock or Robert Ritchie, as his legal name is in Michigan. And for the state of California, Caitlyn Jenner, or Bruce Jenner, as you know, he he was called when he was successful. Um, I think that hearing a conversation today on the radio from neocon Michael Medved it was very interesting hearing somebody who I believe is actually pretty uncomfortable with this try to make himself sound comfortable. And I think that for my part, I don't think I would support either one of these guys, or quote unquote gals, if you want to talk about Jenner. Um, because they don't really have ideas. They're just, they're emotion candidates. They're candidates that are based on, popular perception. They're symbolic conservatives. They're not really idea conservatives. If there was a celebrity that was out there that really is um, kind of going into the real uh, particulars of conservatism, or a real idea at all, which would be libertarianism, would be that magician Penn Jillette. That guy is one of the more bright stars of the celebrity world of political knowledge. Even though I don't think, first of all, I don't think he would be comfortable in the Republican Party. He's a hardcore atheist, and that's why I think that he probably would not fit in, and he wouldn't want to be a candidate for them. Besides which, I think that he would have to run in Nevada. Uh, in any case, there are other candidates that would be interesting. Joe Rogan, how about him? You have Adam Carolla. He would be a good person to run for office. There's people that are on the radio that are good. Larry Elder would have been a great candidate. The problem is that when you're always talking about these potential candidates, they all seem very interesting on paper, but in reality, they seem to be kind of a joke. Um, you see some of these guys. Gary Coleman, I remember, ran for governor when Schwarzenegger was running for governor. Why was Schwarzenegger a success? Let's start from that baseline. Schwarzenegger and Ventura in Minnesota. First of all, they ran for governor. They didn't run for senator. And when you have a celebrity that's used to going to the job and getting their own way and pushing their foot onto the gas pedal and everything. The governor's office isn't perfect for them, but it sure as hell is better than they're running for a senator, and I'll explain why. When you're the governor of a state, you become the center of attention there. It's your ego. It's all about you. You have to, and eventually you might have to compromise with people, but the thing you don't have to compromise about is on being symbolically the leader. You're always going to be the chief executive of the state. And by extension the presidency. That's why Reagan became president and governor. That's why Trump became president, because these are people with tremendous egos. And this isn't I'm just talking about it. Leave aside the politics or whether you think the guy is is a good person. And any of these people, Ventura or Trump, they come into politics. They believe everybody else here is a clown. I am going to be the difference maker. Well, it's much harder to do that as a senator, because as a senator, you come into office and basically you are at the bottom of the totem pole. The leader of the delegation or caucus in the House or the Senate is basically one of these gargoyles, one of these scarecrow leaders that have been there for years and years and years. And that person is not going to bend the will of the rest of his party just to satisfy you. And you see, just like I've been very upfront, I think that Mitch McConnell, I've said before that I think McConnell should be deported to Cuba. I think he's that useless of a leader. He doesn't stand for anything important. There really is no cause behind him. I believe if you're in a position of leadership, you should have a real concrete cause that you're standing for. Not Mitch McConnell, who you see him go up there and he is the cause. His whole cause is vagueness. I'm for a responsible budget. I'm for reining in the massive federal spending and facilitating a pro-business tax code. And nobody gives a fuck about any of those platitudes. Those things could mean anything, and you never go into specifics. And that's why the Republican Party is a failure on the national level. And by the way, that's the same reason why the Democrats are on their end, and why people like me don't want to belong to any party. Believe me, if there was one or two more parties, I think that nobody would be worse off. And probably more would be even better. The more the better. These party leaders are so comfortable in their positions because they can be there for 30, 40 years, not have to change anything. There's a Speaker of the House in Illinois. I see some updates on my feed sometimes. He's been the Speaker of the House for over 30 years. Not in the House of Representatives for 30 years. I'm talking about the Illinois House of Representatives. He's been the Speaker of the House for over 30 years. That's a world record for being the Speaker of any assembly. And what does he do? He puts through spending bills that run the state into the red year after year after year until finally it defaults. They can't pay anymore. They're raising taxes to a degree where it's worse than Al Capone in the old Chicago days of the Depression in the 1920s. Or maybe I think he went to jail before the Depression, but whatever. We have to really put it into perspective. What's a good position for these people? Now, on an individual level, Kid Rock, do I think he could win a Senate seat? I don't see why not. Personally, I think his music is crap, and it just isn't sophisticated or intelligent at all. And this is coming from somebody who's no cultural snob. I've loved. I would say if Eminem would have run for governor or senator in Michigan, that would also he would be pretty good candidate. His music has some depth to it, some depth. It's not exactly King Crimson or anything, but there's some depth to it. Kid Rock is kind of one of the most simple people there is in the world of music. So him coming into politics, he would really have to demonstrate some sort of personal growth, if you want to put it that way, because his music has always been very superficial. It started out as this rap rock, whatever it was, with Bawa da Ba back when I think I was 13 years old. And it really hasn't gotten much more sophisticated. He's gone into a little pop country, which is honestly, his music is so atrocious that it's hard for me to respect him in any other field. But he has his fans, and the people of Michigan like him. So I don't see why not. Why should he not win the race? Because here's the important part: that the incumbents and the people that are in the establishment of both parties just aren't that attractive. They don't have much to hang their hat on. What major piece of legislation has the current senator from Michigan, Debbie Stabenow, been known for in the past 10 years or however long she's been in the Senate? I can't think of one, and maybe it's because I'm not from Michigan, but Senate, it's easy to get lost in the ivy and not have people scrutinize you. And one other thing, that the people that do go into the Senate and they have celebrity status, there's not that many of them, but I'll give you one example. Al Franken was a comedian for years and years on Saturday Night Live, and I thought his books were pretty funny. Back at when I was a kid, I was much more, I was reading a lot about politics when I was a kid, and my views were a lot more liberal, a lot more liberal. So I thought Al Franken's books were pretty funny. He gets into the Senate. The man is basically like a graham cracker. He's aged very poorly. He looks basically the same as anybody else there. So how much real benefit do you get from sending a celebrity to the U.S. Senate? From Al Franken's case, I don't think you get that much. Now, Kid Rock is no Al Franken, but offices change people. Offices change people. I don't think it's changed Donald Trump yet. I think the presidency has only magnified some of the things that we thought were, eccentric about him during the campaign. It's got. I mean, so certainly he's grown into the job, but it's still the same person. It's not like that's changed at all. The other celebrity that people were talking about was Caitlyn Jenner, and or Bruce Jenner, whatever you want to call him, her, it, whatever. I personally would not support Jenner. I don't care. It's not even just because of the transgender thing. It's also because, or this is somebody who will go on to the national stage and make a complete fool of themselves. This would make, I mean, all those people that were saying things about Donald Trump being an embarrassment. Look, this is a person who was on a show that is possibly one of the biggest indicators of cultural rot in America in the past 50 years, where you have people following around this family of you know, uh, I don't even know what to call them. I don't know what they do. The Kardashians are a family of what? What do they do? Can't read the. I mean, let me see if I can read the chat. If somebody's going to help me out with that. Nope, I don't see anything. The Kardashians are a family of what? I don't think we know at all. I think the one viewer might be me. So anyway, pressing. I'm gonna minimize this screen. I'm dumping on Caitlyn Jenner because viewers that I don't have. Wouldn't that be funny? But seriously, Caitlyn Jenner. There's one advantage I'd see in having Jenner, Bruce, Caitlyn, whatever the fuck you call Jenner. There's one advantage I see in it in terms of the entire system as a whole, which is that the Republicans would finally have to face the fact that they're a party that doesn't stand for anything. If Jenner were to be nominated, the rules that have not been broken under Donald Trump, and therefore you would see Democrats basically tearing their hair out, looking for a strategy of how to beat Jenner. First of all, they would have Trump probably campaigning for Jenner or sending out messages supporting Jenner, just to troll either Jenner or the voters or both. Okay, first of all, and Jenner, I think, doesn't support Trump anymore, so that would be pretty funny, showing Jenner trying to say, "Oh no, I don't need Donald Trump's support. I'm my own candidate. I'm my own candidate. I cut my dick off my own self. I don't need Donald Trump." That's what it would be. Or they would have a reconciliation, whatever the hell it would be. In California, it would be bizarre. You would see Donald Trump possibly even campaigning in person for a transsexual candidate. That would be, one of the weirdest sights in history. First of all, because they're both tall as hell, so you would see these two giants walking around shaking people's hands. And I don't know how people would deal with that. I don't know how the Republicans would deal with it. It would be the kiss of death for both parties, because for the Republicans, these Bible thumpers that are, just 5 or 6 years ago, they were having trouble accepting gay candidates or whatever. Now I am not a gay rights supporter at all. I don't care. I personally think that people's tastes are a matter of taste, and if I do like them or I don't like them, that's my choice. It doesn't. I don't even need a good reason to like them or not. It's the same as people would like a certain beer or another. So, for me, the Republican Party supporting the gay rights movement or not support, I don't really care, because what I care about is them supporting the principles I do care about, which would be lower taxes and, dismantling the massive government and cutting defense spending, which they're not doing, and they never have been. So Caitlyn Jenner would be, you would see Democrats panicking. They would not, first of all, they would not have a way to really paint this candidate as anything that they could hate on, except for the fact that Jenner is super rich. That's about it. And you would have a lot of these weirdos, the hipsters or the yuppies that have always liked the Kardashian shows and all that. They would probably cast a vote for Jenner. It's not within the realm of it's within the realm of possibility. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's it for that. And my bottom line is, I think that there could be, if there were going to be celebrity candidates, I could think of some better ones than the ones that we have. Even on the liberal side, by the way, if George Clooney were to run for office, he would have a legitimate shot to win. Dwayne the Rock Johnson, I think, would also have, a legitimate shot with either party. And he's been talking about it. You have other celebrities, like I've mentioned, Adam Carolla. Somebody mentioned on the radio John Voight, who I think has more classic neocon Republican beliefs. That's good for, I guess, for anybody who cares, which I don't. Um, so that's that for the celebrity candidate issue. The other issue that I was going to bring up was the boycotts by celebrities, which is kind of becoming an issue now with Roger Waters and Thom Yorke from Radiohead and a bunch of other celebrities. I just saw that Radiohead, they got some support for appearing in Israel from Michael Stipe of REM. So those are both bands that were pretty big when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school. REM, of course, kind of broke up, I think, in the late 90s to early 2000s. But they're facing off against Roger Waters. And tried filming a video yesterday. I don't think it came out that well, where I try to discuss why I think both sides need to be heard. And by heard, I don't mean that I think we should agree with the BDS side. BDS, by the way, is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement of the Palestinian rights, or whatever you call them, Palestinian cause, which they essentially say that artists, and this is among other things, they don't buy products made in Israel, they don't buy they don't buy stocks, they want a complete economic freeze of activity there, so that they can get rid of the country. They don't say it that way. They say, oh, they want an independent state, they want to end the occupation. Fine, they can state it any way they want it. I know what they really mean. and it's not as if they make a good job of concealing it. It's actually been um, lampooned by such people as Norman Finkelstein, who is actually a very anti-Israel professor, I think, at MIT. They all say, well, if you're doing this, then you're calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. And they say, well, no, this doesn't necessarily mean. And he says, no, by point of fact, what you're calling for is the destruction of the state of Israel. So Roger Waters has been their most famous celebrity advocate for the past few decades. And as you probably know, Roger Waters is the former bassist and one of the lead singers of Pink Floyd, the other one being David Gilmour. And his campaign has been so militantly anti Israel that he's in recent years he's vowed never to travel there again. I'm pretty sure that he would be banned anyway if he tried. Another thing that has been going on is that he's been trying to organize an artist boycott of Israel, and he's gotten a number of other artists, I think like Elvis Costello, to join in. And here, I'll actually pull up a list. List of BDS artists. Here, this is from the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, which is BDS. And they have Ken Loach, Jean-Luc Godard, Naomi Klein. That's not really an artist, by the way. Gil Scott-Heron. Well, I think that's kind of unfortunate. Elvis Costello, the Pixies, the Klaxons, Gorillaz Sound System, Meg Ryan and Dustin Hoffman, Left Field, Massive Attack. I actually like Massive Attack. Coldplay. Well, fuck them. Faithless, Pete Seeger. Wow. Roger Waters, August Burns Red. These guys misspelled archive. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Well, what does that mean? I mean, he does. It's not like he actually does real appearances. Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine. Some of these guys, I doubt if they have audiences in the dozens. The Yardbirds, I think, they were a very significant band when Eric Clapton was with them. Geez. MF Doom, obviously. You got, geez, Zakir Hussain. Okay. Lenny Kravitz, who is actually half Jewish. His dad is Jewish, which technically means he's not Jewish. His mom would have to be Jewish. And it lists Roger Waters twice, so whatever. Stevie Wonder, that's a major one. So these guys, they're all very vocal, or at least have signed up to boycott Israel and not appear there, which I think is within their rights. But what they're trying to do, and what they are, and this may be outdated. It obviously is outdated because it says it's from September 2012. However, so people can decide that they don't want to appear anywhere they want. They can say I'm not going to appear in Moscow. I'm not going to appear in Baghdad. I'm not going to appear in Sydney. Doesn't matter where. I don't have any problem with that. You can boycott any country you want. You can say you don't like it. You can say you hate the people there, and that's fine. You can boycott any city. If you say I hate Detroit, or I hate Atlanta or whatever, and I'm never going to appear there again, that's the choice of the artist. I have no problem. What I do have a problem with BDS is that they try to tell other artists, hey, if you appear there, you are enabling these killers Okay, even though there is no active warfare there, by the way. There's a blockade. There is a embargo on the Gaza Strip, but that's not active warfare. And it should be clear that those two are not the same thing. And therefore, the boycott is perplexing, considering that there are conflicts that have been going on for even longer than that, and oppression that's far harsher than that, including in Tibet. Now, just because I think that the boycott is wrong doesn't mean that I can say don't boycott Israel. But I can say that if you're telling an artist like Radiohead that you can't appear there, or we are going to boycott you, and then we're going to blacklist you. And they did that a couple years ago to Matisyahu, who is a Jewish singer, who is, most of his music, I think, used to be Jewish themed. And they're saying, well, if you appear there and you're not going to support BDS, even though you live there, and you're not going to support BDS, then we're going to boycott you and you can't appear at our festival. Well, in my opinion, that goes into the category of complete coercion, and the heckler's veto, as Shapiro says. I think Ben Shapiro uses it as I'm not sure. There's a bunch of people who've started using. Dave Rubin, I think, has said, and the heckler's veto basically says if there's some sort of event that I don't find favor with that's going on somewhere, I can go out there and force that event not to happen, because it doesn't matter what the people attending that event think. It offends me that it's happening. That is my problem with BDS. That's what they do. And the fact that they use a lot of lies and distortions in order to get their point across, I think, is less of a problem for me. I mean, to be honest with you, if they're lying and using distortion, I think that just works against them. Okay, and if they're using things that are true to their credit, then I think then I'm fine with them saying whatever they want about whatever country they want and whatever cause that they want to. But what they've been doing instead is coercing other artists and telling them, if you go, we are going to make all this press about you and smother your fans with all this negative attention and everything. And I think last week, Thom Yorke and Radiohead appeared in Glasgow in Scotland. BDS supporters there, and they were waving their flags and they were protesting him inside the concert. And he went off on them, and I think he has every right to. And by the way, I don't think he's a supporter of Israel. All he says is, I will appear anywhere I want to. I've done the research I want, and I don't need anybody to tell me where I can and cannot appear. It's the same argument that's been made by John Lydon in the past. I'll pull up the thing with Michael Stipe as well, and then we're going to get into a different aspect of this in a second. No, I've been going a little long on all these stories. It says here, this is from Consequence of Sound. So this is not, I don't believe this is a, this is not a, I think this might actually be a progressive website. But it's by Ben K. It says, damn it. Michael Stipe publicly supports Radiohead's decision to perform Israel concert. Finally, someone who agrees with Thom Yorke. And then it says, Radiohead have taken a lot of heat for their upcoming July 19th concert in Tel Aviv. Israel, in particular, frontman Thom Yorke and Pink Floyd's Roger Waters have been engaged in a heated back and forth surrounding the event. Waters, who is a vocal proponent of the BDS boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, has repeatedly called on the band to cancel the gig. Yorke responded by criticizing Waters for throwing shit at us in public, to which Waters retorted by saying Yorke had been whining instead of engaging in conversation. Waters added that Brian Eno had also attempted to reach out to the band, but had been ignored as well. It seems that Yorke isn't alone in his corner, however, as another artist has come out in support of Radiohead's choice to go on with the Israel show. REM's Michael Stipe posted a message on Instagram Sunday evening stating that he stands with Radiohead in their decision to perform. Let's hope a dialogue continues, helping to bring the occupation to an end and lead to a peaceful solution, he wrote. And he has a graphic. Yorke's most recent defense of his band came in response to criticism from director Ken Loach. When Loach said that Radiohead needed to decide if they stand with the oppressed or the oppressor, Yorke responded that playing in a country isn't the same as endorsing its government. He noted that Radiohead aren't fans of Trump's politics, but that doesn't stop them from performing in the U.S. Music, art, and academia is about crossing borders, not building them, Yorke added, about open minds, not closed ones, about shared humanity, dialogue, and freedom of expression. So I think there's almost a self-explanatory point here, which is that you don't have to agree with Bono did not stop appearing here in the United States with U2 after George Bush got elected, even though he was a major opponent of the Iraq War, an opponent of George Bush. He still came here, and the fact that these people cannot respect a difference of opinion, I think it shows that some of these artists have let their egos just swell in directions that are they can't come back. They're irredeemable in that sense, and I say irredeemable just because you have to maintain a little perspective once you get to that level of fame. If you start to think that your opinion matters more than the customer, more than the audience, more than society at large, because you sold all these millions of records and sold out of these coliseums, okay, then you have allowed the success to get to your head, and that's what's happened with Roger Waters. And then on top of this, why did I say that Waters has to be heard out as well? Like I said, to go and let his views be heard and also appear in public as his own act, which I hate. I think his Radio Chaos album is garbage. However, there's been a call to boycott him and prohibit him from having a concert over um, in Long Island. Let me see if I can share the screen. One second, I'm gonna maximize it. Okay, so you should be able to see this. It says Nassau County officials want Roger Waters concerts canceled over support of Israel boycott. And it says here, former Pink Floyd bassist and songwriter Roger Waters, blah, 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 all that, is set to have 2 concerts at Nassau Coliseum in the fall, but some local officials want the events to be canceled. Waters is set to perform in September, right before the start of the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah. I actually do not care about whether he is performing at one time or another, and he can't just work his schedule around our holidays. So I'm fine with him scheduling it whenever he wants, wherever he wants. And then this Rabbi Anshel Pearl to drop it, and this Nassau County attorney is trying to get them to drop it. And basically, they're trying to get him to drop a concert in Long Island because A, it's on a date that's proximate to one of the Jewish holidays, and B, they are okay. So actually, I think it didn't. You guys see it? Okay, it's sharing now. Here's an article. It's from New York's CBS, And I have to disagree with it. Roger Waters can appear wherever he wants. I do think it's funny that there's such irony at this guy who's been boycotting for years. Somebody else is getting a taste of his own medicine. I think that's very, very funny. Um, Here I am. I'm back. If you didn't see me, Roger Waters is he's getting a taste of his own medicine from some of these people, but it doesn't matter to me because I think that the more attention we give this person, and I think I learned the lesson from we have a Indian group in town, American Indians, that they're opposed to mascots for sports teams, and they've been protesting them for years, and they've been protesting in court too. And the fact of the matter is that despite the fact that their case has plenty of validity and they can say, yes, these mascots offend our children and they depict us as they dehumanize us or whatever. They have plenty of a point there where you would not have a baseball team or a football team named like the Atlanta, Negroes or whatever it would be. You would not have it. These guys, they pressed in court. They tried to get these trademarks removed for the Washington Redskins, and they lost. So, and the fan backlash against them became almost bigger than anything. It became far bigger than their support. Just don't have anywhere to go, and I feel like they had a good cause. I would have supported that cause. I had supported that cause. I went and supported them. I actually went on in person and supported them a couple times. But they have dug themselves into a hole, and I don't think they'll ever get out of it. I'll try to interview one of their people one of these days, and this is a real issue when you go into activist politics. Sometimes you lose. You can't just say because I feel so strongly about this, I'm going to win, because the way you conduct yourself while you're doing it and the way that people perceive you has an influence on the outcome. And actually, they actually behaved very well at these protests. But the fact of the matter is that their declarations and their rhetoric and a lot of the other surrounding issues of SJW stuff that was going on unrelated to them, it poisoned their movement. It made them seem just like all the other causes that are overly sensitive and politically correct, seem to have fallen off a cliff. And I don't think that they're going to succeed in the near future, even though I guess I wish them luck. Still broadcasting. Okay. And then a final point. I've done a lot of work on the Venezuela and Brazil issues, and I'm not going to stop doing that. I think that's the most important issue to talk about right now. It's certainly more important than all the crap that they're talking about. Constant Trump, Russia garbage, and then Obamacare, I think, would be the other important issue. I am going to have a few more guests, hopefully, in the near future. I'm trying to work out a guest for tonight. And speaking of freedom of speech, this is going to be a real freedom of speech guest because his opinions are pretty far from mine. They're pretty, and they would trigger a lot of people. But because I do think that in order to get back to a society where people are able to learn from discussions and conversations instead of just broadcast and attack and whatever, I think that it's a good idea to have interviews like this, just like I did with Kareem Abdul Kareem from Black Lives Matter. I don't agree with his movement at all, but I think that within an hour, um, I got to know exactly what his ideas were, even if I didn't agree with them, and I got to do it in a non-judgmental way. I got to see the person actually explain it and make it more human to me. The same goes for Dan Casimir, another guest that I had on about a month or so ago. And obviously I came in having spoken to him a little frequently too. But both of those guys I'd spoken to before. But that was an experience that has opened a lot of doors for the future. And the guy tonight, or whenever it's going to happen, I'm hoping it's going to be the same thing. And then there's going to be a couple other guests, hopefully, that I don't think are as much of an issue in terms of freedom of speech, at least in the United States. But I think the style that I'm trying to promote here, and that um, and like I said, I don't have an audience that I really need to cater to, or at all. If you're looking at the viewer count, I don't have an audience I need to cater to. But ultimately, I think that this is kind of an experiment that I use to give myself a little more of a realignment from day to day. I can go on here and encounter people and share my ideas and get theirs. And I think it's a healthier activity than just watching other people talk and getting angry at things that would outrage me, and vice versa for the guests as well. I think that it's much healthier to be able to vent their ideas to somebody else than necessarily to just go nuts and talk about how things are an outrage or whatever, on their wall or typing to their friends or whatever. I think that this is a channel, like many other channels on YouTube, that is helping to heal a lot of people's emotional problems due to these current events that are going on. So everybody have a good night. I know this stream was a little stream of conscience, but I think that this is the way that I get all the crap out of the way, all the Caitlyn Jenner and Kid Rock stories. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing it very often, but I see other people doing it. I see the benefit of doing it, and let me know what your thoughts are. You can always comment on the posted stream afterwards, of course. And everybody have a good night, and expect more later.